Hello and welcome to another edition of What's Your Take? I am Dayo Akintobi and it's a pleasure to be with you here again this glorious Monday morning. And how has your week been? This has been a very interesting week on the landscape of Nigeria, especially to do with politics. We saw, first of all, the postponement of the governorship elections by 1 week by the electoral umpire. We'll talk about that as we get into the show. And of course, we also saw all kinds of developments during the week in terms of people scrambling to try and meet up with the political activity. We saw governorship candidates eating ice cream with commoners. We heard of another governor who drinks 40-year-old whiskey at 9 a.m. in the morning. I mean, it's just been all kinds of stuff. There's also been tragedy as well. There was a sad story of a journalist in Ibadan who, because he didn't have cash, was walking, had to trek to his radio station and slumped along the way and lost his life. That's another casualty of the Naira redesign policy. So we've got that and a whole bunch of other interesting stories. We've got a guest in the studio who will also join me to analyze those major stories that made the headlines last week. And we'll take it from there. As with me, as always, is my trusty sidekick and newscaster, Yetunde Afolabi. Yetunde, how are you today?
Morning, Dayo. I'm very well, thank you.
Good to see you. How was your weekend?
My weekend was relaxing. It was quiet.
Anything interesting happened your way?
Not really.
Well, no. In my neck of the woods, the funny thing is, the only big news was that the guys who had planned to play football in the streets on Saturday were disappointed. They had planned all kinds of league matches. You know that because during the elections, there's restriction of movement, so there's no cars moving. So in my neighborhood, the streets become football pitches. So the only complaints I heard during the week was the young lads who had planned to play football on the street, who suddenly found out, they had to cancel their plans because cars were everywhere on Saturday because there was no election. Anyway, so how's the cashless thing doing you as well? Have you been able to get over this not having Naira? How have you sorted out not having cash?
I think I'm starting to adapt to the fact that cash is gold right now. So I'm tending towards the bank apps and the online, banking system.
Are all the vendors you deal with taking transfers and POS? Because I'm aware that a young lad around my house tried to go and buy bread and tried to go and buy plantain a few days ago, and they simply said they don't accept transfers.
I've luckily been able to swivel my way around. So I've seen bread sellers that accept transfers, petty traders that accept transfers as well. So I'm quite lucky, I would say.
Okay, well, let's hope all of the rest of Nigeria is as lucky, or in the alternative, maybe the CBN will comply with the Supreme Court's directive one of these days and let us begin to see cash. Let cash flow, both the old notes, the new notes, let it flow nicely. But we'll talk about that in the program as we go along. So let me introduce my guest. Joining me to take a look at the big stories that made the headlines last week is Michael Adebowale. Michael is the Social Secretary of the National Youth Council of Nigeria, Koshofe chapter. Michael also serves as the Sergeant at Arms, Youth Assembly of Nigeria, Lagos State chapter. Welcome to What's Your Take, Michael? You have a very rich resume in youth organizations. Might you be planning on getting involved in politics down the road?
It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm glad I could make it.
Yes, we're very happy to have you, and we look forward to a robust and engaging time talking about the big headlines of the week. As we know, the future belongs to the youth. Nigeria already is transitioning from us old soldiers to the next guard, which is the youth, and they're already coming into reckoning. So I'm glad to have Michael with us today to give us the youth perspective on the major stories that are making the headlines in Nigeria today and throughout last week. All right, over to you, Yetunde. What do you have for us to talk about first?
INEC postpones governorship, other elections for BVAS reconfiguration. Results viewing portal, I-Rev, now working, ready for governorship polls, says INEC. In addition, the Electoral Commission says reconfiguration of the BVAS machine ends today, Monday the 13th, and promises the technology will work seamlessly next Saturday for the governorship and state houses of assembly elections. Over to you, Dayo.
Michael, How do you see this postponement of the governorship elections? Was it the right thing to do by INEC? Has it kind of destabilized the whole electioneering process? Has it put some candidates at a disadvantage? Has it put others at an advantage? What do you think? Was the postponement a good thing?
Yeah, to me, I think the postponement was a good thing. Looking at the last elections and look at what played out. No party or no party candidate will have any excuse now. Also for INEC too, they will not have any excuse to give concerning the election results. So I think they just use that 1 week extension to perfect all their plans, and hopefully after the elections we won't have any disgruntled persons, complaining about the result of the elections.
So when you talk about disgruntled persons, are you saying that the first election left a lot of people disgruntled? Do you agree with that the first election didn't meet up to expectations and left a lot of people disgruntled?
To me, from my own perspective, I won't say it didn't meet up. I just felt that the people who lost out just wanted something to hold on to, as a reason for their loss.
But INEC has admitted that the BVAS didn't upload results. Are you saying the electronic transmission of results is meaningless and doing it the manual way is okay?
No. If you look at the true state of the matter, the only reason why the BVAS was supposed to upload results to the server was for people like you and I to gain access to it. Not just only the people who, were to be voted for everybody. And to me, why I don't see anything wrong in it is we had party agents from each party who had different polling units, who had result sheets, and they all signed. And that was the same result sheet that was taken to Abuja. So you now coming to complain about the results because it was not uploaded has not been correct. I think you're just trying to.
So what you're saying is, as long as the results tally, even if it was not uploaded electronically, as long as what was signed by the party agents at the polling unit tallies with what INEC declared in Abuja, what's the issue? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because we all live in a world of technologies, and somehow we always have technology glitches.
Yes.
So an INEC came out to say that the server was attacked 62 times.
Okay.
So it wasn't safe for them to upload the results into the server. Okay. So I think that's quite understandable.
Yes, indeed. I mean, no technology is perfect, but nonetheless, the point is that INEC promised before the election that its technology would work seamlessly. It also issued guidelines in accordance with the Electoral Act 2022, and its guidelines stated that electronic transmission of results would be the way they would do this thing. And that has, of course, opened the door to challenges based on the fact that they didn't do that.
Also, the Electoral Act also stipulates that INEC can decide how they want to announce the results, manually or electronically.
Yes.
It wasn't compulsory.
Okay.
They only did that, to make things easier.
Or more transparent.
Yes.
And more credible.
Will I say transparent? I don't think transparency is an issue here. Because, like I said earlier, the results were with all the party agents.
Yes.
So it's just, we came into a place to listen to results we already have.
Yes.
And I remember doing the electoral, the INEC, collation of the results.
Yes.
Somebody from, I think, I forgot the party, stood up to complain. And the response from the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood, was, you have the results with you. As these results are being collated, if you have any issues, stand up and talk.
Spoken like a true politician, perhaps said there's politics in Michael's future here. But nonetheless, I think the major issue about whether the results tally between what was at the polling unit and signed by party agents and what was declared by INEC, I think that's secondary. Even though, yes, party agents, but how about the electorate, the voters, who are the ultimate arbiter? They are the ones who are now kind of shortchanged by virtue of the fact that the way it was promised to be done was not done and has created a trust deficit and some measure of suspicion. So the burden of proof now is on INEC to show that despite the failure of its promised methodology that there is integrity in the results it declared. I think the burden of proof on that is on INEC. All right, Yetunde, what do you have for us next?
Presidential poll. PDP governors, leaders protest at INEC head office in Abuja. Insist elections were flawed. PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar demands results cancellation. What's your take on this, Dio?
Well, my take on this simply is that that's part of democracy. We have the freedom to dissent or to not agree, and the way to express disgruntlement is to go to the courts, which is what I believe the PDP has said is going to do and the Labour Party has said is going to do. Calling for cancellation of the elections, well, it's easy to call for anything you like. At the end of the day, it's going to be up to the courts as to what they do. But let's hear what Michael thinks about what Atiku is asking for. It seems like he's directing his comments at INEC because obviously if he's going to direct it at the courts, he would do it through a brief or an application he files at the court. What do you think about this whole PDP protest? We saw them in black T-shirts last week marching to INEC office. It was a peaceful protest. It was a protest of disagreement, disgruntlement, dissatisfaction. And in the aftermath of that, Atiku now called for the cancellation of the elections. What do you think, Michael?
I think the first thing I'll first say is you don't come out and say you want to cancel results. This is an election that took a lot of process, the planning, the financial aspect, and you come out to say it should be cancelled. I don't think that's the best.
What happens if you are not satisfied with the results?
These are results. To me, they should be recounted if you feel the results are not right. And looking at these elections, we had the presidential elections, the House of Rep elections, and the Senate elections all held the same day. If you are going to vote that day, you'll be given 3 sheets.
Yes. And
at the same time, you're going to vote.
Yes.
So why are you after the presidential election? Was it possible for INEC officials to rig only the presidential and leave the House of Rep? So this is my own personal opinion. So I find it quite strange. They didn't contest the House of Reps results. They did not contest the senatorial results. So why the presidential election? So like people have said, I've been watching TV, I've been listening to radio programs, and most of the lawyers, the sons we have in this country have said the best place to go to is the court. And I know for sure the court would want to go back and look at the results and will not ask for cancellation of the results.
The court will, yes, definitely look at the evidence that's placed before it and use it to determine. I think they say the standard that the court adopts is that did the lapses or the shortcomings of the election lead to a substantial difference in what the outcome of the results would have been. If they find it wouldn't have made a difference whatsoever, whether it was BVAS failure, whether it was voter intimidation, voter suppression, whether it was stealing of ballot boxes and BVASs, whatever the causes of the lapses may have been, if the evidence does not prove that those lapses did not materially change the outcome of the results, then there's no case.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Exactly.
Indeed. Interesting. Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see because the Labour Party also is contesting the outcome. And they have also said they are going to court. Matter of fact, I think I read today that Labour Party said they are going to have a protest. They are going to occupy all INEC offices in the country as a means of protest. What do you think of that?
Well, to me that's funny because I'm not trying to mock any party, but we've seen in the past that most of these protests lead to nothing. The best place is still the court. Well, I was even looking at the Atiku protest. These guys were less than 100. And some of them claim to be from different organizations. And from investigations, we found out that they are party members of this disgruntled party. And according to the news, the Supreme Court has given the Labour Party some candidates, Mr. Peter Obi, and his entourage, access to go and inspect the election materials.
Materials.
So let's see what the outcome will be, because I saw Peter Obi on TV saying he won the elections and he's going to prove it. So we are waiting.
Yes, we wait and we see.
It will be very interesting.
It will be interesting to see. It's interesting days ahead, long days still, but let's see how it all plays out in the interest of democracy and Nigeria. All right, Yetne, let's move on.
Supreme Court order on old notes. Banks in partial compliance begin skeletal recirculation. Deposit money banks in the country have begun partial compliance with the Supreme Court's order approving the use of old 1,000, 500, and 200 Naira notes as legal tender till December 31st, 2023. The court has said that the federal government's Naira redesign policy contravened the 1999 Constitution. Meanwhile, few banks paid out the old notes during the week, while others were awaiting directives from the CBN, which remained silent. Most ATMs remained dry, while skeptical bank customers and traders rejected the old notes. As rejection of the old Naira notes spreads, reports say the economy has shed 20 trillion Naira as the Naira redesign policy has weakened productivity and emasculated small and medium-scale enterprises across the country. What's your guest's take on the Naira crisis, Dio?
Well, Michael, money, 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 no money in the pocket, no money in the hand, no money in the wallet, no money, but money in the bank account. How do you, okay, so the bank started giving out the old 1,500 Naira note last week. The CBN hasn't spoken up, the presidency hasn't spoken up, but the Supreme Court has said those notes remain legal tender till December 31. But the CBN, who is the regulator of the banks, hasn't said anything till now. So some banks are still saying, our Oga has not spoken, we can't do anything. And even the ones that are doing, they are giving out very small quantities, and many consumers are not even accepting them because they say the traders won't accept them in the marketplace, transporters won't accept them. So we are still caught between a rock and a hard place. We are still in limbo and people are suffering. How do you see this whole money problem?
And this is what I call in my own terms, partial anarchy.
Partial anarchy.
Exactly. This is a disrespect to our legal system.
Disrespect by who?
I think by the people playing the business and the banking sector. I think, like I was telling my students, I said, right now in my mind, I know there has been a cartel that has decided to make money from this crisis. Because, yes, we have the executive, the judiciary, and the legislative, here at play. Now the judiciary has said, spend this money. The old notes, the new notes, side by side. Now, the executive, who is supposed to enforce it, is mute on it.
Can the Supreme Court order the executive? Are you saying the Supreme Court is more powerful than the executive?
I'm not saying powerful, but in my own understanding, I think they are almost at par.
So if they are at par, how can one tell the other what to do?
Because it is its duty to do that. There's a dispute between people based on this crisis, and they've gone to court, and the court has said, okay, till December 31st, both old notes and new notes remains legal tender. We don't even need the CBN governor to come out and say anything. The law or the order is meant to be just obeyed outrightly. But because of how things have been in the past, people are waiting for Mr. Godwin Emefiele to come out and say something. He's not saying anything. And it's to me, this anti-people policy. Because you've done something which you told us will help us, now it's not hurting us.
Well, we read that 20 trillion has evaporated from Nigeria's economy. The economy has basically ground to a halt. I mean, there's almost zero trading activity going on now, and even people's ability to meet their daily requirements of clothing, shelter, movement, all that is severely truncated. So when you say the CBN governor is not speaking out, should the banks just go ahead and ignore him and meet their obligations to their customers? After all, this money in the banks belongs to the people.
Like what I said there are people in the banking sector, who decided to make money from this. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he told me, you know, he needed cash to run his business. And someone said, okay, I'll introduce you to somebody. He got to the person's office and met hundreds of new notes lying on the floor. This person was supplying this money to POS merchants.
But the CBN as the regulator, can they police the sector? Or are you saying the CBN is complicit in the underhand making of money from this?
Of course. Who prints money? It's the CBN. So definitely, the CBN is the number one person or number one institution who is aiding and abetting this POS merchant. Okay, when I was coming out, I needed cash. I didn't have cash. Most of my transactions, has been transferred. And I told the lady, I need 5,000. I said, can't get up to 5,000. I'm giving you 2,000. I said, just give it to me. And I noticed that all of us that came there, nobody could get above 1,000, 2,000. So definitely it means the lady will be with up to like 100,000 cash. But just because she's giving out 2,000 for 600.
How much did you have to pay for that?
600.
600 to get 2,000. So we're having to buy our own money now.
In fact, it's
wow.
very, very, very painful.
Very, very painful. The thing, the major thing though is that it's gotten to a point now where the CBN needs to speak up, because despite the Supreme Court ruling, people are still hesitant because people are scared that suppose this money becomes obsolete in my hand, it's only the CBN really that can give value to the money at the end of the day. If the CBN refuses to collect it, the money becomes useless in people's hands. So traders are not collecting it, consumers are not collecting it from the banks. So CBN really, we encourage the CBN, say something, stand up, look Nigerian people in the eye today and say something so that our lives can start back up again. We've been comatose for too long. Thank you, CBN. Yesterday, next.
Anger as gunmen kill 35 in Katsina, Kaduna. No fewer than 18 people were feared killed on Saturday evening in Katsina State when terrorists clashed with local security guards. This is just as the death toll of Saturday night's attack in Kaduna State rose to 17 in an incident that pitted cow herders against local farmers. Dayo, we haven't heard of these types of attacks in quite a while. Are they back again?
Let me throw that question to you, Michael. I mean, it's been quiet for a while in terms of insecurity, these cow herders and farmer clashes and bandits, or maybe we've just been distracted by politics in the last few weeks to where we've overlooked or ignored those stories. But it seems like things have calmed down a little bit in terms of this insecurity issue. Maybe it's that the army has stepped up with those Super Tucano jets. They've been able to penetrate Sambisa Forest and all these other places. But now, in the last week, there have been 3 or 4 incidents. Look at this one in Katsina and Kaduna. How do you see this? Are these attacks back again? And if they are, what do you think needs to be done that hasn't already been done? Okay,
like you said, for a while, we've not heard of these attacks.
Yes.
And when I was reading through the story, I found that there was a wedding where these terrorists came to attend the wedding of a fellow terrorist. And something happened, there was a clash. And it was that clash that escalated into what we're seeing now. It just goes to show that, like what you said, everything had calmed down. But we still have porous borders. I was reading an article where I looked at a picture of a border between Nigeria and Cameroon. It's just, I put it, there was no fence, nothing. You could just step into Cameroon, and how many step back into Nigeria. So these guys come in and go out freely. And because of just a small clash, that's what has happened. So I think the government needs to fight off this thing once and for all.
Police our borders?
Yes.
Okay, so you believe that most of this is foreign infiltration? You don't think it's homegrown, local people doing this?
Where I was living, where I was staying before, I had a chat with the security man. He's from the north. And he told me that these guys are actually people they know. Because it's like 2 border towns.
I see.
So they know them. And it's just like, he told me, it's not like you don't see your younger brother for a while. And he comes back. You chat him and you know what's up. So these guys come into Nigeria and out of Nigeria easily. They are mercenaries. They are being paid. So the government needs to work on our borders. And especially in the northern part of Nigeria.
Well, it might sound like cold comfort, but the bottom line is that the army is the one that is responsible for territorial integrity. So if they are really coming from across the border, then the army is actually empowered to go and take the fight to them. Army is not supposed to fight internal insurgencies, really, or anything internal. It's supposed to defend our territorial integrity. So if you are correct that these people are coming from across the border, that gives the army the local standing to go ahead and take the battle to them, and we hope the army will do that in coming days. Okay, Yedne, our last story. We are fast running out of time. So tell us about this disaster that happened in Lagos a few days ago between a train and a bus.
Okay. 6 Lagos workers die, others injured after train-bus collide. The Nigerian Railway Corporation, NRC, and the Lagos State Emergency Management Authority, LASEMA, have blamed the driver of the bus for the accident, and the federal government has ordered a probe. According to the government agencies, the bus driver was reckless and ignored safety warnings by railway staff.
Okay.
Families and Good Samaritans donate blood as 29 critically injured victims battle for survival. The Lagos State University Teaching Hospital has said there are still 43 victims of Thursday's train bus accident on admission in its facilities. LASUTH had on Thursday said it received 102 victims of the train bus crash for treatment. The Ministry of Health, in a statement on Sunday titled Updates on the Bus Train Accident in Lagos as at Sunday, 12 March 2023, explained that 53 victims had been discharged as of March 12. What's your take on this, Dayo?
Well, 102 passengers seems like a lot of people to be on a bus, but my understanding is that a lot of people who would have taken public transport to work didn't have cash and opted to go in the free state transportation provided by the Lagos state government, and that's why there were that many people in the bus. So here we are again seeing this Naira redesign policy creating havoc and extinguishing innocent Nigerian lives. So back to CBN Governor again. Speak up today, Mr. Emefiele. Last word from you, Michael, on this crash between the bus and the train. From a transport perspective, how could it have been avoided?
Yes. Last week Thursday was a Black Thursday for Lagos State, and it's very painful that these people, our teachers, end their lives all because of the mistake of one person. According to the news report, the train was coming and the bus was flagged down to stop, but he thought he could quickly pass through
Before the train came?
Before the train. And maybe some mechanical issues happened, and unfortunately the bus could not go, and that's when the collision happened. 2 people died on the spot, and 4 died
Subsequently.
and got to the hospital. So I think the driver is just the one to take the blame. He has been apologizing to everybody, but so painful. It could have been avoided, and this is common with most of our drivers. We are still yet to, have a society that obeys traffic law. In Senate climes, if you have the red light stopping you, even though there are no cars,
You still stop?
you still stop.
You don't dare go?
You don't go. You don't even go. But here in Nigeria, they just look, okay, there's no car coming, no car going, let me just go. So it was very painful that his act led
to loss of human life. And that's where we're going to have to leave it for today. We thank Michael Adebowale for joining us. If he's an exemplar of what Nigeria's youth is all about, then the future is very bright for Nigeria, because Michael has been very articulate and incisive with his analysis of the various news stories today. So once again, I thank you for joining us. My name is Dayo Akintobi. We look forward to seeing you again on the next edition of What's Your Take. Have a good day.